Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to our yearly tradition. With the year almost over, it's time to look to the future. Today, I will be counting down my top 10 most anticipated releases from Big Finish for 2022. As you can see, I'm doing things a little differently this time due to poor timing, scheduling, and if I'm being completely honest, just poor time management. I'm doing this video as purely audio, well, with some visuals, instead of filming myself, just because that way I have more time to record segments and edit them rather than waiting for the opportune moment to film myself, because I don't have the time to set up my camera and everything and just film. So hopefully this way, this will give me more time. With that out of the way, you know how this works. I've compiled a list of the releases coming from Big Finish Productions in 2022 that I'm looking forward to. As always, a couple disclaimers. Everything presented is my opinion, so there are things on my list you might not be excited for, or you might feel different for. Like the thing I'm least excited about, you might be the most excited about. That's okay. I invite you to start a discussion in my comments section. But that brings me to the second point. Everything I'm talking about in this list is everything we have information on. You know, I can't purely speculate on what's going to come out in the coming year. And for some releases, Big Finish likes to hold their cards to their chest until a little closer to release dates. Like, we know there's going to be a First Doctor release, just as an example. But beyond that, we don't know anything about it. No information has been revealed. There has been no release date, etc. So I can't really talk about that. I can't really be excited for that. One more thing before we begin the list. You're going to see this generic quote-unquote blank placeholder image that Big Finish uses, because at the time of putting this video together and compiling this list, a lot of these titles have not had cover reveals yet. That might change, but between now, the time of recording and the time of release, this is what I'm working with. And if during that time we have a cover reveal, I guess I started filming this a little too early. Anyway, without further ado, I don't really have any honorable mentions. This was actually a really hard list to compile, so let's just get started. So starting us off at the bottom of the list, number 10, 10th Doctor Classic Companions. So something happened during the pandemic and lockdown. David Tennant suddenly became much more available to record for Big Finish, which is why over the last year or so we've had so many 10th Doctor releases. You know, we had the 10th Doctor in River Song, we had the 9-part epic Dalek Universe, we had the Out of Time series, and now we're getting this. I personally believe this is meant to be a companion piece to Out of Time. More on that in a little bit, but basically in a similar vein to how the 10th Doctor found himself in Out of Time teaming up with earlier incarnations of the Doctor to fight iconic monsters. This time around, the 10th Doctor will now be teaming up with classic series companions. The companions in this set are K9 and Leela, so presumably K9 Mark 1, Nyssa, and Ace. The reason this is at the bottom of my list is I'm not expecting much from it. For one thing, I'm not the biggest fan of the 10th Doctor. He's my least favorite Doctor. For another thing, with this premise and concept, I'm expecting this to be purely a fluff piece. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I like a bit of harmless fluff every now and again. So I'm not expecting a lot of substance here. I'm not expecting anything really deep or emotional. I'm expecting just a good time. And I like having a good time, so while my hopes aren't high for this, I gotta say, I'm curious. Number 9, 40. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of Classic Who Season 19, the debut of the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison. As such, this is Big Finish's celebration of that moment, and stars the Season 19 TARDIS team, the Fifth Doctor, Nyssa, Sarah Sutton, Tegan, Janet Fielding, and Adric, Matthew Waterhouse. 40 is going to get 2 releases next year. We only have the cover reveal and information for 41, as it's being called. I imagine somewhat joking. But 41 features an Ice Warrior story and a Cyberman story. And that's going to be kind of interesting to see, given the really famous event that happened with the Cybermen in Season 19. At this point in time, all we know about 42 is that it's going to feature an Auton story, which I think I'm even looking more forward to than this first volume. I mean, I'm hyped for the Ice Warrior story, don't get me wrong, but overall, we've not had a lot of Auton stories. 3 on TV, Spearhead from Space, Terror of the Autons, and Rose, and only 1 on audio. It was an 8th Doctor story whose name I'm forgetting. So it'll be interesting to see a different Doctor going up against them. But, you know, even though we don't know a lot about 42, and we only have information on 41 at the moment, just know I am counting 40 as a whole as the number 9 spot on this list. Number 8, The War Master Self-Defense. This will be Series 7 in the War Master spinoff, and this particular release will star David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. Boy, for someone who is my least favorite Doctor, there is a lot of 10th Doctor stuff on this list. Not really, it's mostly confined to the back half of this list, and admittedly, the 10th Doctor's inclusion is kind of why those releases are brought down. Anyway, enough of that. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with this set. The War Master series has been consistently amazing, only with one real dud, Series 3, Rage of the Time Lords. And I really want to know what's going to happen here, because in the past, with the 10th Doctor, Big Finish has kind of done this thing of pulling him into a universe before the Time War. So I'm interested to see if that's going to be what happens here, or in a subversion of that plot device, are they going to put the War Master in a universe after the Time War? It'll be great to see Jacoby and Tennant again, play off each other again after Utopia. You know, an episode that also featured one of the biggest downgrades in Doctor Who history. For, you know, Derek Jacobi to John Sim. Yeah, not much to say about this. I love this series. Derek Jacobi is my favorite master. I can't wait to see what demented, absolutely twisted plan he has this time around. Number 7. Out of Time 3. Wink. As of right now, this is the final installment in the Out of Time series. As I kind of mentioned earlier when talking about 10th Doctor Classic Companions, the premise of the Out of Time series is that the 10th Doctor finds himself in a universe before the Time War, and he finds himself teaming up with his earlier incarnation, his classic series incarnations, to face iconic monsters. In the very first release, he teamed up with the 4th Doctor, Tom Baker, to face the Daleks, and then in the second release, he teamed up with the 5th Doctor to take out the Cybermen. Ever since they announced they were doing more out-of-time releases, this is the one I was waiting for because of my personal biases. Here, the 10th Doctor is teaming up with the 6th Doctor, Colin Baker, who, if you're a regular on my channel, will know is my favorite Doctor. And this time they are facing the Weeping Angels. Now, I've said this before. I haven't really gone too much into it because there's not much to say. For a purely visual monster, Big Finish, as an audio drama company, does some really spectacular Weeping Angel stories. You know, as I've said in the past, Fallen Angels, their story in Classic Doctor's New Monsters, is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite 5th Doctor audios. And then Carnival of Angels, the Diary of River Song story, is also really good. Yes, to illustrate the angels attacking, they just use a cheap sound cue, like a sort of a jump scare sound. But despite that, the angel stories are really good. So I do really have high hopes for this story. And also, again, my favorite Doctor facing the Weeping Angels. How can I not be excited for that? Number 6. The Ninth Doctor Adventures, Volume 4, Old Friends. And I'm going to include a little caveat here. So, Old Friends, the 4th volume of Ninth Doctor Adventures, is the conclusion of what is now being called Series 1. Earlier this year, Big Finish announced / confirmed that they are doing further Ninth Doctor adventures with Christopher Eccleston, and those releases will be called Series 2. So even though I am citing the Ninth Doctor Adventures, Volume 4, Old Friends, specifically, I am also kind of including the Ninth Doctor Adventures Series 2 as part of this because I believe it's supposed to start releasing next year as well. We just don't know anything about it. Anyway, the Ninth Doctor adventures have been amazing. And Christopher Eccleston has just been spectacular in all of them. It's like he never left the role. It's like the issues we know he faced during the filming of the show were non-existent. His energy is amazing, and I just love him. He's one of my favorite New Who Doctors. He's probably my 3rd favorite behind Capaldi and Whittaker. Not important, but I am really hyped to see what he's going to bring to Volume 4. All of the releases in Series 1 have kind of followed a theme of sorts. Ravagers, Volume 1, was a 6-part epic. Volume 2, Respond to All Calls, was an anthology, but it was kind of based around this premise of the Ninth Doctor answering various distress calls and the repercussions of answering those calls. And then Volume 3, Lost Warriors, was about, as the title suggested, misplaced warriors, soldiers without wars to fight, and the Ninth Doctor's own experiences with that, having just come out of the Time War. We don't know a lot about Old Friends. There is one thing we know, and I'm getting to that, but from the title, I assume we're going to meet some sort of friendly allies, either new to this set or previously established. But the big draw of this, the one that I think everyone is hyped for, is that the Ninth Doctor, a New Who Doctor, will finally get to team up with the Brigadier. And more than anything else, that is what I'm excited for. The Brigadier is one of my favorite companions. Yes, in that debate, I count him as a companion. And it has always been my hope to see him team up with a New Who Doctor. Stephen Moffat came close, but Nicholas Courtney unfortunately passed away before those plans could come to fruition. But now it's finally happening. There's not much more to say, but hype. We've reached the halfway point. Number 5, Mind of the Zodiac. This story comes to us from the Lost Stories range. If you're new to the channel or haven't heard me talk about them before, the Lost Stories range of audios are stories that are adapted from scripts that were proposed for the TV series but never entered production for a variety of reasons. So Big Finish got their hands on these scripts somehow, and with some adaptation are presenting them. This one's interesting, as this is a 6th Doctor story that was written by one of the first showrunners for the revival series, Russell T Davies. Now, I do have one small nitpick about this. Claiming this as a lost story, just based on what history we know about this story, seems dubious at best. But like I said, that's just a really small nitpick, and it doesn't really hamper anything about this story. It's just, why is this being called a lost story? To my knowledge, Russell T Davies never actually proposed this for the series. Beyond that, though, I am really looking forward to this. Now, you probably heard me talk about this when Davies was announced to be returning as showrunner for Doctor Who, or in my reviews of Flux. I am not a big fan of the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who. In fact, in my personal taste, in the entire series, Classic and New Who, for me, it is the worst era of the show. Especially when we get to the 10th Doctor era. That aside, I am kind of curious to see what's going to happen in this story. As I said in the past, my favorite 7th Doctor audio is Damaged Goods, an adaptation of a book he wrote. So that does have me a little more optimistic. While I'm not the biggest fan of the Doctor he created, I did like what he did with a pre-existing Doctor. And that does make me really excited to see what he would do with my favorite Doctor. Also, Mel's back, and I'm kind of excited about that. Mel's not one of my favorite companions. I don't dislike her, but I don't like her. I don't feel strongly for her, but it has been too long since we've had anything with Bonnie Langford. And that in and of itself is just going to be a treat. Also, look at this plot description. This kind of sounds amazing. In the depths of space, the mysterious Zodiac is manipulating the Galactic Stock Exchange to raise money. His aim, to hire mercenaries for a deadly quest across the stars. Meanwhile, on Earth, an ordinary British family is plagued by a series of psychic events. The one thing connecting these events is a magnificent patchwork coat, which just so happens to belong to the Doctor. The Doctor's costume, the 6th Doctor's costume, is gonna be a plot device. That sounds so bizarre and insane, and I am 100% here for it. Number 4. The 7th Doctor Adventures, Silver and Ice. This is one of 2 7th Doctor adventures we're getting this year. And like 40 and the 9th Doctor Adventure Series 2, I'm kind of grouping them together, even though right now this is the only one we know about. And my excitement for this is more a sense of, finally, it's about time. So if you were not following along with Big Finish, late last year, early this year, Big Finish put out a statement. There would be no audios starring Sylvester McCoy, the 7th Doctor. And that was for one of 2 reasons. I heard both of them. I forget which one is true or if they're both true. One, Sylvester McCoy was in an area of poor internet, and thus it was difficult to maintain contact with him. 2, unlike the other actors who were still able to record for Big Finish, he did not have a home studio, and he did not have access to a studio. Like I said, I'd heard both of those statements. I forget which one is true or if they're both true. Also now there is speculation that it was a scheduling conflict because we recently learned a couple months ago that Sylvester McCoy had been cast as the family servant Igor in Rob Zombie's The Munsters. Regardless of the reason, minus a small cameo in The End of the Beginning, we had no 7th Doctor content. And now we seem to be in a spot where Big Finish can remedy that. As I said, we are getting 2 7th Doctor adventures this year. And I'm really excited for this first one because, like Mind of the Zodiac and one other story that's coming up on the list, it's a story with Mel. And, just general excitement for that because, as I said, we have not had a lot of Mel content in the last couple years. That also means we are getting the Season 24 characterization of the Doctor. And that makes me really happy. I talked about this a couple years ago when I reviewed the Season 24 trilogy. I'd seen a statement that Sylvester McCoy said he didn't prefer playing the darker, more grand chess master characterization of the 7th Doctor. He actually preferred the earlier, more clownish iteration of that character. So the fact that in this box set he's paired with Mel, it means these stories are going to be set during McCoy's first season, Season 24. And I really think for the Seventh Doctor, that's going to be really refreshing because I think a lot of the post-series stuff and a lot of his stuff with Ace, just to me personally, I feel like it gets kind of stale really fast. So I'm happy to see him back. I'm happy to see him with Mel. And, I'm just really happy that we're finally getting some Seventh Doctor content. Number 3. Peladon. No, that's a Peloton. No, that's a Pteranodon. What? No, that's Don Knotts. There we go, Peladon. Oh god, I hope that joke was funny. Anyway, so Peladon's kind of interesting. At this point in time, I still haven't seen either of John Pertwee's Peladon stories. Actually, that's a lie. At the time of recording this, I am actually watching The Curse of Peladon. I'm hoping to watch both Peladon stories in preparation for this. But anyway, wow, that was a bit of a tangent. Peladon. I don't know if Peladon's going to be the start of a series or if it's just going to be a one-off, but this does seem interesting. Initially, we all thought, at the time when we didn't have much information about it, it was going to be this sort of political thriller epic starring King Peladon, David Troughton's character from The Curse of Peladon. However, as we've gotten more information and now we have a cover reveal, that's not quite the case. This seems to be an anthology of stories set on the planet Peladon at differing times. I believe this is a 4-story set. And, one story features King Peladon, one story features the 6th Doctor and Mel, one story features River Song, and one story features the 8th Doctor. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because the Peladon stories are some of the most politically charged in the entire series. NMDs would probably call The Curse of Peladon and The Monster of Peladon woke. So it's going to be interesting to see what commentary Peladon brings. And it has to have some commentary. Personally, because of how ingrained these stories are in the fandom, I don't think you can do Peladon without some form of political commentary, Curse of Peladon was about the United Kingdom joining the European Union. And, I'm watching it right now. I'm almost done with episode 1. It is very thinly veiled. And similarly, from what I know, the Monster of Peladon is about the 1972, I believe, miners' strike. So I'm curious to see what commentary this box set will bring. One more thing of note, and honestly, the reason I'm most excited for this, is a prominent Who-tuber in the Doctor Who fan community. Dominic Martin, aka the Who Chaser. Well, it was revealed that he is a producer on this set. And more than anything else, more than the stories themselves or the premise, that's what's got me really hyped. I love Dom's work. He seems like a really nice guy. I've never really met him. I maybe only had 1 or 2 interactions with him on Twitter. But like I said, to see a Who-tuber that everyone really just loves and is just awesome move up like this, I just can't say how hyped I am for this set and how proud I am of him. Number 2. The Third Doctor Adventures, The Annihilators. Season 7, John Pertwee's first season as the Third Doctor, has been getting a lot of love lately. This year, in the Third Doctor Adventures Volume 7, we had the story The Unzal Incursion, which is currently my favorite Third Doctor audio. And one of this year's Diary of River Song releases, Series 9, took place during Season 7. I can see why. Season 7 is a great season. Not one of my favorites, but still great nonetheless. So now, we're going full on out with the Season 7 love with The Annihilators, which is going to be a 7-part story. For those of you who are new to Doctor Who and unfamiliar, in John Pertwee's first season, there were only 4 stories: Spearhead from Space, Doctor Who and the Silurians, The Ambassadors of Death, and Inferno. Spearhead from Space was 4 episodes long. Those other 3 stories, Doctor Who and the Silurians, The Ambassadors of Death and Inferno, were all 7 episodes long. So, aside from being a great season, Season 7, more than anything else, is known as the season of the 7-part serials. So, The Annihilators is a tribute to that. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens. You know, in the past, the Third Doctor adventures have been 2 stories, 4-part each. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Third Doctor adventures can do with a 7-part audio. It's also going to be interesting to note that this set is written by Nicholas Briggs, who, if memory serves me right, is the director of the Third Doctor adventures range. Now, like a lot of people, I have a very hit and miss track record with Nicholas Briggs. Some of his stories I absolutely love, like Beneath the Viscoid I really enjoy. I really like The Light at the End, and The War Doctor Volume 1, Only the Monstrous. A lot of his stories aren't that great. Like, I am not the biggest fan of Doctor Who Unbound Exile. In fact, I actually hate that story. But one thing I've noticed is that Nicholas Briggs excels at longer stories. So, as I just mentioned, he wrote the entirety of the first War Doctor set, Only the Monstrous, which is really good. The Ninth Doctor Adventures, Volume 1, Ravagers, is really good. So, the fact that he's helming a 7-part Third Doctor serial, which he seems to be a really massive fan of the Third Doctor era the more I think about it, I can't think this set is going to be anything but amazing. And we've made it. Number 1, the release from Big Finish for 2022 that I am most excited for. The Second Doctor Adventures Beyond War Games. Oh, you have no idea how happy I am that Big Finish is finally doing this. I think last year, so by 2022, it'll be 2 years ago now, they teased this, and now it's finally happening. We are getting a Season 6B box set. Again, for those of you who are new to my channel or new to Doctor Who and haven't heard about this, Season 6B is a popular fan theory that the show itself is kind of accepted as canon at this point. The old Doctor Who website used to have an entire page dedicated to it, so it is kind of official. Anyway, it gets its name from Season 6, Patrick Troughton's final season as the Second Doctor. Now, Patrick Troughton has the most unique regeneration in the entire series, because it doesn't happen on screen. And behind the scenes, that's again because Patrick Troughton had the most unique regeneration in the entire series. He is the only Doctor to leave and regenerate before his successor had been cast. You know, when William Hartnell had to leave, Patrick Troughton was already cast. When John Pertwee had to leave, Tom Baker was already cast. When Paul McGann finally regenerated, John Hurt was already cast, and so on and so on. And no one thought anything of that at the time. Fast forward about 20 years or so to the Colin Baker era. A little bit with the 5 Doctors, but more so with the Colin Baker story, The 2 Doctors. When the Second Doctor starts saying all of these things that don't make sense. He has a recall device that is able to call the TARDIS back to him. Something no Doctor has ever had. He says his goal in that story is that he is on a mission from the Time Lords. Even though for his entire era, he was still on the run from the Time Lords and only met them again in his final story, The War Games. So Season 6B follows as this. At the moment of his regeneration, which we've never seen, the Celestial Intervention Agency, essentially the Time Lord Black Ops, pulled the Doctor out of time and had him do a series of missions for them. And then, when they were done with him, they put him back in time to finish his regeneration into the Third Doctor and begin his exile on Earth. I love Season 6B. I've said this before, and I think there is, even though we've had a few stories in the past, I think there is an untapped well of potential for the stories we could get from this. So, other than the fact it's been officially announced and it's coming out in July, we don't know what's going to be in this set. We don't even know anything about the cast. Is Fraser Hines still playing the second Doctor? I certainly hope so. I love him as the Doctor. It's really uncanny and amazing. But yeah, the fact that we are getting season 6B content more than anything else, I'm just excited that this set exists. All right, and that's the list. What are your thoughts? What are you excited for coming out from Big Finish in 2022? Start a conversation in the comments below, and please remember to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box down below, you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. As always, this is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I will see you guys next time.